Welcome to the Nurse Becoming podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Guarnieri from the Resume RX, and this is the podcast that's dedicated to empowering and encouraging nurses along your path of professional and self-discovery. As a nurse practitioner, mom, and business owner, I'm on a mission to help you figure out how to leave your lasting impact on the world, all while bravely and fearlessly growing along the way. Join me for honest conversations and inspiring stories about personal and professional growth, all through the lens of nursing. Hello. Welcome back to the Nurse Becoming podcast. It's your host, Amanda Guarnieri. I'm so happy to be in your ears today. How are you? I feel like it has been a little bit. It's been a minute since I've recorded a solo episode, and I am excited for the two that I'm recording for you today. If you didn't know my process, I do batch record some episodes, particularly when I'm doing solo episodes. So I'll spend like a day outlining 2 or 3 episodes at a time, and then I'll spend a couple hours recording those episodes. So I'm recording 2 for you today that I outlined earlier this week, and just excited to share these things with you. I really would love to know which you like better. Do you like these solo episodes where it's just me? Do you like the interviews that I do with other nurses and NPs, or do you like that it's a mixture of both? I would really love to know that. You can shout me out on Instagram or send me a direct message at the Resume RX if you have an opinion, if you want to vote, or you could leave it in a review if you want as well. That would be cool. So what are we talking about today? We are talking today about misalignment. And I will, of course, go into detail about what I mean here, but I want to start with a question. I'm wondering, have you ever been unhappy in a job, but you can't quite put your finger on it, and you can't quite figure out what it is that makes you unhappy? Like, for example, your pay might be great or acceptable. Your role is exactly what you wanted. You might even love your patients, but for some reason you're like overly annoyed by certain things in the workplace, and you end up festering about them during and after work. Have you ever been in this position? If you haven't, maybe this episode won't be entirely relevant to you, but I think you should listen anyway, because it may happen in the future, and I would want you to know what this may mean. I know that I've definitely been in this position before, and today I want to explore something that we really haven't touched on yet in the podcast, and that is workplace values misalignment. Kind of a big phrase. Once we break it down, I think it should be clear what I'm talking about. And we've had earlier episodes. I don't have the numbers offhand, but I know that there's an episode that I did with Liz Rohr from Real World NP, what to do if you hate, or I hate my NP job, now what? So that's a topic that we have explored before. And I've presented this kind of framework as to when you should consider quitting, right? But this is really diving deep into this one specific reason that may be making you unhappy. And I think this is an important topic because workplace values misalignment can be a huge contributor to burnout, and it might just sneak in without you realizing exactly what's going on. Now, when we talk about values, I'm referring to the core beliefs or principles that are important to you. Everyone has different values, and we even have different values in our personal lives versus our professional lives. For example, some of my personal core values include safety, connection, freedom, creativity, space when it comes with time. Whereas my workplace core values include integrity, collaboration, autonomy, and mutual respect. Now, all these may resonate with you, but there may be some things that I've said that just aren't important to you, which is totally fine. This isn't like a right or wrong exercise. This is more about what's important to you individually. So it's entirely possible that you and your coworker doing the same job might have entirely different experiences in that job. And this could be to you having different workplace values. For example, if it's one of your workplace values that everyone is resourceful, but you have medical assistants who are constantly asking you questions that you know that they could look up, then that could be a values misalignment. Or another example, if autonomy is one of your workplace values, but you find yourself frequently micromanaged by your supervisor, that also could be a values misalignment. So, basically we're not necessarily talking about a place being a terrible place to work, period, and certainly those things exist, but we're talking about when you individually hold certain values that then are contradicted in the workplace for whatever reason. So I want to break down, how you can tell if you have a values misalignment at work. And I've come up with 3 different signs that I think might help you figure out, okay, is this a problem that I'm having? I'm unhappy. Could it be workplace values misalignment? So here's one. The first one is you can't vacation yourself out of your unhappiness. Basically, no amount of PTO can get rid of this feeling that you have. I've certainly been in a position at work where I was just so tired and run down that really all I needed was time away to relax, to rejuvenate, maybe reevaluate my schedule and my commitments before then returning to my job and actually having a refreshed outlook. I was fine after taking that time off. That's really all that I needed. That's not values misalignment. That's being overworked. That's, not taking enough time for yourself. That's more of like a scheduling balance issue. If you take a week off and truly rest and return to that consistent nagging feeling of being annoyed by every little thing, if you find that even a week away could not heal your relationship with how you feel about your job, that could be a sign that there's a values misalignment. Hey, my friend, if you are an NP or an NP student, then I would love to invite you to be my guest at the 2022 NP Society Virtual Conference in October. Tickets will go on sale a little bit later this month, but in the meantime, I want you to take a minute and join the waitlist. Joining the waitlist will do a couple of things. It will get you early access to buying your ticket, as well as a special discount that won't be available anywhere else when they go live and on sale to the public. We've got a great lineup of both clinical and professional topics, a social mixer, and a special virtual swag bag for all who attend. Not to mention CME credits. I know you want them, so I've got you covered. To join the waitlist, head to theresumérx.com/waitlist. Again, that's theresumérx.com/waitlist, or click the link where you're listening to this episode. Sign number 2, your coworkers can't relate to your frustrations. So it's certainly possible that there may be some collective values that are misaligned, especially in workplaces that have kind of a generally toxic work environment. I definitely want to affirm that those exist, but I don't think that's necessarily every workplace. But if you kind of all have some collective values that are misaligned, that could definitely lead to multiple people in the same workplace being unhappy. But if you are seemingly the only one with your specific complaint or frustration, or you bring something up and it, really bothers you, but it doesn't seem to bother other people, that could be an example of a workplace values misalignment. The third sign is feeling disconnected from the impact of your work. I think this is a sign of burnout in general, but if you feel as though the burden of these workplace issues is overshadowing the impact of the work that you're doing, taking care of your patients, the general good work that you're doing, because face it, we are all out there doing good work in a clinical environment. This could be a sign that a values misalignment is contributing to your degree of burnout. So just to recap, these 3 signs that you might have a values misalignment at work. First, you can't vacation yourself out of your unhappiness. Second, your coworkers can't relate to your frustrations. And third, you are feeling disconnected from the impact of your work. So the question is, what do you do next, right? If you are resonating with any of those 3 signs above, or there's another reason why you think this may be a problem that you have, you obviously want to take some next steps, right, to make it not the case. So there's certainly a lot to say and a lot to explore on this topic and how to recover from a workplace values misalignment. But, I like these episodes to be actionable and not overwhelming. So I'm not going to give you, an entire 12-step plan on how to fix this. If you want me to talk more about this and this is resonating, please let me know somehow. But I do have 3 important next steps that I think that you should take if you identify that you may have this type of misalignment before you just decide to impulsively jump ship. And when I say that, I mean quit your job. Certainly caveat, you don't need my permission to quit your job if something is really wrong, if things are unsafe, if there's fraud going on, certainly if there's a reason why you need to quit your job immediately, you don't need my blessing or permission at all. But if you are kind of contemplating whether or not you should quit, and it's possible that you may have a workplace values misalignment, I really do encourage you to go through these steps before you submit your letter of resignation. Okay. So these are 3 steps in order. The first one is to figure out your workplace values. So you can certainly recognize that there's a misalignment without knowing what your values are. But if you can uncover those values and do this exercise, then it may be a lot easier for you to figure out how to proceed. So this will take some time and reflection. Okay, there's not, a definite quiz, at least that I know of, or, really super easy way to do this. I think it's helpful to search online for a list of values, or even better, a list of workplace values. I did not put one together for you, but I do have some examples. And basically, if you read through a list like this or one that you find online, just read through and see what resonates, see what seems the most like you. Okay. And hopefully you have a good sense of self and you'll be able to say, yes, this is important to me. This isn't as important to me. Some examples that I found when I was searching for workplace values include autonomy, responsibility, flexible schedule, humor, productivity, supportive leadership, collaboration, recognition, and I threw this one in, excessive time off. That's definitely something I would value in a job for sure. So that's step number 1, figure out your workplace values. The second step would be to audit your current situation for the actual areas of misalignment. So once you're clear on your core workplace values, you may end up with a list of 5 to 10 or so. I think that's a good amount. Start to examine how your workplace stacks up against those values on your list. Where are you feeling the friction? What are the biggest things that bother you and feel misaligned? This will help you figure out, okay, where are the exact areas of misalignment now that you know your workplace values and now that you've examined those and stacked them up against the workplace itself. So that's step 2, doing the audit. The third step is to ask yourself, what can be changed here? So the final step, and again, ideally this all comes before quitting your job, is asking, what can I change? Can I change any of this? I think it's important to realize that you have some agency, and perhaps more than you realize, over your experience. And it's entirely possible that some of the things that feel burdensome to you can be addressed and potentially changed in an effort to alleviate that misalignment. I think it can be so tempting just to run and say, I'm done with this. This isn't what I want. This doesn't align. So the only answer is to find something new as quick as possible. But I definitely think that it's worth trying to improve the circumstances first, especially if it's a role or a position that otherwise really aligns with your goals. Okay, so that's definitely a challenge. I think it's not really the default for a lot of people. Usually the pathway is, I'm unhappy at work, so I'll start looking for a new job. Whereas, what I'm really suggesting is if you recognize that you're unhappy at work, try to dig into that a little bit more and see if there's anything that you can change. And you may find that you can't, but at least you will have gone through this process so that you then are super clear about your workplace values as you go and look for another position, right? Because what don't you want to happen? You don't want to end up in a position like you are now, right? Like the goal is to find a workplace that not only has the role that you're looking for on paper and the salary and the perks and the benefits, but a place that also embodies these workplace values that you have, having shared values. Like that's important when we're looking for a partner or partners, in romantic relationships. It's important in friendships. And I think it's important in the workplace too. And I think it's a huge bonding element that keeps us with people and workplaces is that overlap and shared values. Okay. So just to recap again, we went over 3 signs of potential workplace values misalignment. The first being no amount of PTO gets you out of feeling unhappy in your role. The second being your coworkers can't relate to your frustrations. And the third one is you're feeling disconnected from your impact. And so the next steps, ideally before looking for another job or quitting the one you have, is to first figure out your workplace values, which you can do by just kind of searching for a list, reading through and seeing what resonates, or you may have some already that come up for you when you think about this. Second step is to audit your current situation for misalignment, basically taking those values you've identified, stacking them up against how the workplace is. And third, asking yourself what can be changed and kind of empowering yourself or challenging yourself to find some areas that can be improved before you decide, okay, this workplace definitely isn't for me. So that's it for today. A nice short and sweet episode. I'd love to know what you thought about this topic. If you had any aha moments or realizations, you can tag me on Instagram at @theresumérx. Leave your thoughts in a review. I especially love when you review on Apple Podcasts. I read all of those. If you didn't like this episode, no need to leave me a review. It's totally fine. I hope you are having a great day and a great week. Can't wait to talk to you again. So until next time, have a good one. Well, that does it for today. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. If you have found today's episode helpful and you would like to support the Nurse Becoming podcast, I invite you to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/nursebecoming. I appreciate your support. This helps me create more content for you to enjoy and benefit from in the future. Also, would you consider giving me a rating or review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done so already? It will truly help other nurses find the show and know that it's worth listening to. For more information about this episode, as well as a place to submit your questions or suggestions for future episodes or guests, head to nursebecoming.com. I can't wait to connect with you soon, and until next time, remember, I am always rooting for you.